Well, that was the Patanjali CEO, a company that always finds itself in the news. I also caught up with the Asia Pac CEO of Cargill on a day when the company has announced an investment of $240 million. That translates to about 1,500 crore rupees. This would be invested in the entire value chain over the next 5 years. He also importantly told me why he thinks protectionism is the biggest threat to food security in the world. Take a look.
When you talk about the Indian market, I think you first have to talk about what it means, what Cargill wants to be. So Cargill wants to be the leader, the global leader in nourishing the world in a sustainable, responsible and safe way. So if you think about that mission statement and you think about 1.4 billion people in India, we have to be in India. So for us that's already a starting point. And of course to be successful we are in the agriculture supply chain, so we do everything from trading up to processing, up to risk management and financial trading around that. End to end, from basically from farm to fork. I think India is a very important country for us. Coming back to your question what it means for the smallholder, it's crucial to have a very strong relation with the smallholder because they have to be successful. Successful means that they can increase their yields, their output, but also raise their incomes.
Right, right. Tell me a little bit more about the announcement you've made today of $240 million. Where will you be putting in the money? What's the rationale behind putting in and committing that kind of money on the table?
Yeah, so it's obviously it's a directional number and it's across the supply chain. So we are active in oils, we are active in starch and sweeteners, we're active in animal nutrition, we also do industrial products, so basically agricultural-based products to replace mineral oils, and then in cocoa and chocolate. So the investments of 240 million is in all these areas. So it's a wide portfolio.
Right. You know, the government has been focusing a lot on strengthening the back end, creating more storage so that the food does not get wasted. You know, a startling statistic I stumbled upon was the amount of food the United Kingdom consumes every year is the amount of food that gets wasted in India. You've been putting in also strengthening the back end. You've been setting up, storage facilities. Talk to me a little about, about the strategy going forward. Do we see more investments in the back end as far as storage, cold chains are concerned from Cargill?
So I think if you look to the supply chain, again, from farm to fork, you can say that we are historically strong at the farmer end and then moving up in the value chain. So what you're seeing is more and more investments in the supply chain, be it in processing, be it in storing, but also bringing products to the consumer, from business to consumer as well. So we're making investment in all the areas. As far as cold chain, I don't see us doing that, but we can partner with some of our customers in order to strengthen that. But again, it is an integrated supply chain that we try to manage.
Okay. You know, you've been in India for 30 years, as I said, and the whole idea of the summit really is to position India as some sort of a food capital, food hub of the world, to do more processing from India. From your experience, how viable is that goal of the government? And I would be happy if you can also identify for us some of the regulatory challenges that perhaps may prevent India from reaching that ambition.
Yeah, first of all, I think you have a couple of macroeconomics in your favor, and in the sense of 1.4 billion people, there's a sheer size of the world population will reside in India, for starters. Then you see the rise of the middle class income, you see the urbanization. So I think that all helps in order to say, okay, India is an attractive destination market. From an origination point of view, it can also be a hub for other parts, especially for the region, be it Africa or other Asian countries. But in order that to happen, I think it's very important that you have harmonization on food safety standards, that you have less barriers to trade. And one thing which is obviously happening already is the GST, one standard GST across the country, which is very favorable for us.
So when you say, food standards, if you can just expand a bit more on that.
Right, especially with regard to food safety standards, the global standardization on that, and that you don't have differentiation in a country. When you have standardized that makes it easier for us as a big company to invest across the country.
Peter, let's talk about the future of food. I think you've said this in the past, that today's food production is enough to feed the world's 7 billion people. But you've said protectionism is a problem. Why do you say that?
I think this has to do with the notion of comparative advantage. So you produce there where it makes most sense to produce. It doesn't make a lot of sense, and Cargill is located in Minneapolis, to grow palm trees in Minneapolis and then to do palm oil in Minneapolis. The best place is probably Malaysia or Indonesia to do that. But in order to throw from one area to the other, you need free trade. The moment you start protectionism, I think it leads to a very small market and eventually lower incomes for the farmers. So if you have free trade, it will lead to, I think, more economics for everybody, more growth. But in addition to that, it will be sustainable as well, because you grow there where it makes most sense.
So does it also concern you that even at the WTO level, a lot of time many of these issues are raised of the kind of subsidies governments give, Japan, US, this whole kind of, in the sort of tug of war, I mean, who can give more subsidies to, do you think does that concern you?
I think for us, overall, everything when you limit trade with barriers, can be in non-tariff barriers or import duties or export duties, it's a concern, because we stand up for free trade. We want to see an open market, a free market, not because it's good for us, but I think we believe it's good for the economy as well. It's good for the smallholder, for the farms, and I think you look to the statistics, it has proven that free trade leads to better economic statistics. So what you see today in a lot of countries is, okay, we want to protect that in order to raise farmers' income in the short term. In the long term, it will be devastating for the overall global growth.
So at a time when, as I said, the government wants to double farmer income, what would your advice be then to the government of India?
No, I think we agree that we want to see incomes of farmers rising.
But how do you do that?
By working together with the private sector, with the government, with open trade, and then support the farmers to grow what makes most sense. Crop diversification, not maybe only one crop, going to more crops. Make sure that the farmers and tell a story that they can export, that they can make a living out of the export as well.
Well, strong words there from the Cargill Foods Asia Pacific CEO. With that, we've got to wrap up the special broadcast here on CNBC TV 18. But remember, come tomorrow when the World Food India Summit takes place, CNBC TV 18 will be your one-stop shop for all the big headlines and interviews with the top global CEOs. From all of us here, thanks very much for watching.